Welcome to episode 141 of the Force Geeks, a Star Wars podcast where X-Wing marks the spot, my friends. This is our 15th show of our 4th season. We are still processing the finale, the final chapter of season 3 of The Mandalorian. Here's a quick rundown of everything we're going to be talking about this week. This is a spoiler special. You know how we do things here. If you're listening to this episode, you probably heard the other spoiler special, so be warned about that. The Mandalorian putting a nice little bow on multiple storylines for us, from Moff Gideon to the future of Mandalore and the familial connection of Din and Grogu is talked about, but also it opens the door to something that might not be so obvious. Though it looks like it wrapped everything up, there's a new door opening up. Also, rumors are swirling about another sequel trilogy cast member that could join the new movie featuring Rey. Someone who said they didn't have any interest in coming back. Will this mark John Boyega's return to the franchise? I certainly hope so. And now that the Mandalorian season has wrapped up, what does Lucasfilm have on tap for us next? We're going to discuss that all coming up. I'm Nate Custer, coming to you from Northwest Arkansas. My fellow Force Geek from Seattle, Jake Scott, he's here. And also, we have one fighter jock with us these days. We also have Chris Ridlon back as well, who's become a mainstay of the show at this point. Fellas, how are you? How you feeling after the finale chapter of season 3? Jake, I'll start with you. What was your takeaway from this?
It was really good.
Yeah.
I just kind of felt like it didn't do enough, but I'm not sure I can articulate why.
Yeah.
So, I know that sucks.
Oh, we're going to talk about it. You'll articulate it by the time we're done.
Yeah. Don't you tell me what to do, boy. Yeah, I don't know. I really liked it. Don't get me wrong. I just, I don't know.
Something a little lacking for you.
I
can hear it in your
something
voice.
was missing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know.
All right. Chris, how about you? How you feeling after the finale chapter of season 3?
I thought it was a great episode, like some of the better action sequences we've gotten out of The Mandalorian. They did the classic, exactly what we talked about, where they have the battle in space, the battle, like the jetpack battle, and then the battle between Gideon and Grogu, Din Djarin, and then eventually Bo-Katan. So that was awesome. Some of those action shots were phenomenal.
Yeah.
With the jetpacks and stuff. But I agree with Jake. Like, it's just, I don't know. It definitely, it was, it's only like 80% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. So I think it was one of the lower, not as well received as it could have been. And I think it's just, they didn't have enough time to wrap up everything. There wasn't enough time. So I don't know. I kind of wish, I don't know. You want a little more, but it's hard to pin down exactly what that is. It did a nice job of wrapping up a lot of threads though, and tying in a lot of things. So I don't know. I thought it was fun. And I guess what I would say is missing is there, in the end, other than the Shadow Council, in this episode, there was nothing tying in the larger story other than now Grogu and Din Djarin are going to have some adventures. Yeah. And I was expecting some sort of something to put Grand Admiral Thrawn in there, and everyone was expecting a post-credit sequence.
See him.
At least do that if you're not going to do anything else. You have some footage from Ahsoka. You've shown it, so just put it in there. I don't know. I thought that was an odd choice to me. I think if they would have done that, if they would have done that, it probably still, wouldn't be 100%, but it'd probably be like a 90, a 9 rather than an 8.5.
That's an interesting point you bring up. Had they shown like a post-credit scene of just Thrawn on the bridge of his ship or something like that, I think you're right. That probably would have been a 10-point boost to a 90% Rotten Tomatoes.
People would have lost their shit.
You could have had Hux. You could have had Hux like reporting to Thrawn. Like Hux reporting to someone.
Yeah.
Like, hey,
Moff Gideon's
base was destroyed. Blah blah blah, and then cut to like the other end of the holo where it's Thrawn, or like just show Thrawn on the holo. I think you could have done a lot with it. So.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm feeling really good after this. I think I give it a 9 out of 10. I think it did really well. I'm actually trying not to focus on what I felt like was missing based on the narrative that came from all the people talking about the threads, on Reddit or what have you, all those things where we had all these theories that were out there and guessing what we'd see next, that there'd be another spy that we didn't know about, that there would be a big death that we didn't know about. Yeah, I'm acting like I didn't hear the interviews with Favreau and Filoni in the cryptic post from Brendan Wayne saying that it was going to hurt, all that stuff. It totally threw me off the scent of what was really happening. If I didn't know about any of that stuff, I would have no complaints with this episode other than not seeing Thrawn at the end. That's
Well,
the only thing.
I wonder if they cut multiple endings, like, and then, maybe they had a death planned and then
Possible.
didn't put it in there, because it didn't test well or something. They'll do that sometimes.
Yep.
So,
How about this? And we'll
I mean,
get
it was
into
a
this
9.
more.
To be clear, it was a 9 for me. Like, I loved it. Just like I just think they could have put it over the top for people that don't love the Mandalorian. But dude, it's like we talked about. This was a classic, like, Star Wars return to old George Lucas.
It was.
Star Wars. This is not Andor.
It
So
was
you're not-
totally
sorry,
honoring
critics.
it.
Sorry, critics, you're getting a campy, like, action-packed, multi-battle ending, and people are like, "Oh, it's too close to Darth Vader." Like, who cares? It's fun.
Yeah.
So I don't know, whatever. And they've set it next season up to be more episodic, like, so they'll save the really heavy stuff for the movie probably.
I think you're right. Hey, just as always, before we get too deep into everything, we're breaking everything down, I want to give you a big shout out to dailysuperhero.com, run by our good friend and fellow Force Geek Daniel Wolf. He had some strong thoughts about this episode as well.
I can't
some
wait
things
to
he
hear
liked.
his hot take.
Yeah, I know. We're going to join him on a future episode where we'll come back and kind of get his whole synopsis of the final of this season and also the overall season for 3. We'll talk to him more about that. But again, just giving back to our friend here that runs dailysuperhero.com. It's where you can get your superhero and Star Wars news. In addition to supporting Dan, we ask that you also support us by subscribing to the pod and leaving us a positive review. We love seeing them. They're so much fun to see, and that there's other like-minded folks out there who enjoy talking a little nerd Star Wars talk. That's right. You can also hit us up on social media, which includes our Facebook page, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search for us at the Force Geeks on any social media platform that you want to find. You'll probably find us there. It's Facebook, it's Twitter, it's Instagram, it's YouTube. We are there. And also, though we create the show every week right here in the U.S., we know we have a global audience, and we appreciate our international friends. So greetings and thanks to everyone listening all over the world, including our listeners in Dublin, Ireland. We just added that into the mix. And here in the States, we got to say what up to Big Sag, Montana. We appreciate your support as well as your friendship in the Force. All right, guys.
Dan guy needs to stop that working and being responsible crap and get online with us.
I know. He's always working.
Be a slacker like we are and hang out.
Exactly.
Well, guys, we're going to start The Mandalorian, digging into everything here with our initial reactions. We've kind of given that here and go into the final episode of season 3. And we'll also talk about an overall arc of season 3, what we think of it. Chapter 24, titled The Return, and directed by the longtime contributor, once again, Rick Famuyiwa, who also serves as the newest executive producer of the season, of the show this season. And you're right, he is absolutely fantastic. I'm ready for him to get a movie. Yeah, he crushed it.
Give that guy a movie.
He has directed some of my favorite episodes of the entire series. He and Bryce Dallas Howard.
And Bryce. Yep.
Yeah, they're phenomenal. They're phenomenal. And I can't wait to see more from him.
Give them the trilogy. I'm serious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Serious.
Hey, I'm down to see what they could do in the film world for sure. So let's get into all this. So this title, The Return, it hints at a lot of possibilities, guys. That was one of the first things that struck me. The return of what? Is it just the obvious return of Mandalorians to Mandalore?
Return to the Mac.
We have that. That's right. Return of the Mac. Yeah. Also, like, I thought maybe would it be the return of the Mythosaur? Would it be the return of? Would we get another big, like, second season surprise of a Jedi showing up? I was kind of hoping for all those things, but it simply implies Mandalorians back on Mandalore. It is the return. So there's that. You could also say it was Moff Gideon to some degree, but he was already revealed in the last episode. So in the previous episode, The Spies, which caused a lot of debate online, ended with all the heroes in a really tough spot. They left us a pretty good nail-biter situation. Bo-Katan, she contacts Axe Woves to tell him of Moff Gideon's plan to destroy the fleet. And the Mandalorian, who had previously been captured by Gideon's new troopers, we're talking about Din, of course, he had escaped quickly with the help of Grogu and IG-12 in his IG-12 vehicle. Great action sequence there, right? I mean, like, that was a lot of fun to watch.
They're definitely getting their Brazilian jiu-jitsu work out of the stunt guy this
seriously.
episode.
And dude, like, Bo, like, they are shooting back, they freaking placed the explosive and jetpack down the hallway. That was awesome.
Yeah.
It's a fun. The action was intense. It was really well executed. It was a lot of fun. Just from watching the episode, I mean, if you don't think about all the things you were like hoping to see and you just hung out and watched the episode, it was a hell of a good time.
Yeah, it was great.
It was a great time. So I don't want to hear from so many people griping about what we didn't get. Yes, there are things we didn't get. You're never going to get everything you want. You're not the one in charge of it. So just take it for what it is. I think that would help people to enjoy.
So
Just
that's
take it for
the
what
problem.
It is. I know.
I'm not in charge of it. Got it.
There's that. But I thought the
Not the
action sequence was
boss.
great.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, Grogu coming out of nowhere. I was like, that was a question. I'm like, how did this happen? He just comes out of nowhere and he's taking care of business. And I mean, but it was a great action sequence. It was fun. So there was that. Beyond that, Moff Gideon in his new super suit knows that Din is coming for him. He's watching him. He's paying attention to everything. Mando calls in R5D4. Where the hell did he come from? Like, has he been on the planet this whole time?
Apparently so.
I know. Again, probably with a longer episode, you would have explained a few of these things to us. We would have seen Grogu sensing something and running to get there in time to save Din. And, And in R5, had they had a moment.
How Din is with droids. I'm sure that he just left him.
Yeah, but he's good with droids now.
The last time.
He's good with droids now. Like, all of a sudden he comes out of nowhere. Yeah. Again, it doesn't need to be explained. It's nice to have it, I guess. It helps quiet the naysayers. But R5, proving he's a hero. It was
a
good.
Fun sequence.
It was a fun sequence. I loved the whole mouse droid thing too. It was pretty comical.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. So Axe, he executes Bo-Katan's plan to get all the people off the ships and down to the surface, leaving the light cruiser in space as a decoy, and he stays with the ship. At this point, I thought for sure he was going to sacrifice himself.
Yeah.
What did you guys think?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, at first, where you're like, is this the double cross? And then, like he's getting everyone off the ship, then he's going to use the light cruiser to like waste the gauntlets. But then, it's like, is he going to sacrifice himself? Man, I thought, they did a really good job. This was, in terms of the space combat, one of the best, both the space combat and the dogfight between the jet troopers, or, whatever you want to call them. Are we calling them dark troopers, jet troopers? What are we calling them? I guess
jet
they're
troopers. Dark trooper armor. So
I
guess dark troopers. So I guess, anyway, between them and the Mandalorians, but
the light troopers.
Yeah, the first person view. So the way the TIE's launching, and then they cut to like looking out out the back of a TIE fighter.
Yeah,
I mean,
really
dude,
cool.
it was just the best done that Star Wars has done with space combat.
And it really is just little touches like that make all the difference.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Mandalorians flying across the space in the drop ships and touching down the surface of the TIEs and beginning the bomb. I mean, all that stuff was excellent.
Yeah,
it was so much fun to watch. It was definitely a return of a tour de force for Star Wars and what it was doing. I really dug it. I think the finale really had some explosions going on, man. I think it was an explosive episode in a lot of ways, especially when it comes to how well it was done for the battle. I mean, that's a very Star Wars thing. The epic battles, you got
cutting
between
multiple
levels.
battles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I would say, I don't know. Was this better than Battle of Scarif? Probably not. But it's probably it's almost number 3, I'd say.
I mean, Battle of Scarif was a lot longer.
It's probably, obviously Return of the Jedi, Battle of Endor interspersed with the duel in the throne room. The Attack on Hoth and Battle of Scarif are kind of a push to me, and this would probably be number 4.
In the television space, it's number 1.
Yeah, I think
definitely
so.
Number
television
1.
space,
question.
definitely number 1 for sure.
Yep, absolutely. So we're watching things on the surface, we're watching things in space. It's getting exciting. I too thought, is this the point where Axe turns and we get him as the reveal of the spy? I wished I'd never thought about there being another spy. I wished I'd never paid attention to the articles. I wish I'd never paid attention to the theories on Reddit, all that stuff, because it kind of ruined it for me.
Push that out
so,
of my
dude,
head.
like on that for a second, Screen Crush got it from somewhere else. I don't remember who they cited, but they talked about this in all the reviews. Like I think a bunch of those episode titles are direct throwbacks to like the stories of the Jewish people. The spies of the 12 Mandalorians back to Mandalore, just like there were, a spy from each tribe of Israel that went in and, to the Holy Land before the actual Israelites returned. So, I mean, and then in the end, they returned to the temple and so I don't know. I think
biblical proportions.
If you put it in that, if you put it in that sense, then the spy is not the comm officer there. It's actually the Mandalorian. So then it makes sense. So I don't know. I mean, I think I buy into that.
It's how you frame it, right? What's the frame of reference for that? And that made a lot of sense. I read the same article from Screen Crush, and it made a ton of sense to me. I was like, okay, I get this. I wish we just love talking about Star Wars and figuring out what's going to happen next. I love being right when I guess something. So that makes us, it like forces us to make these big leaps in what we think is going to happen.
Instead of just enjoying it. We mostly called it, like a lot of other people.
Mostly.
Wrong, but like I think, I feel like we mostly landed on there would not be like a huge double cross.
A lot of us thought the armor could be potential. We thought it was Axe. It was going to be the armor. One of those two. We thought one of those two people is making a big double cross.
Yeah.
I thought even possibly it could be one of the Mandalorians that never left the planet. The leftovers. I thought possibly they could be involved somehow. I had 3 of those theories going on in my head the entire time, wondering, okay, is this when the turn? Is this when the turn happens? Is it now? It never happened.
Really think it, but I
stopped thinking
I
about
didn't
it
think it was going to happen. Yeah. Like I didn't think they would do that, but then like it just had been talked up so much online that I'm like,
every article you read last week was all focused on who the other spy is.
All about it. Who's the other spy?
Who's going to
die? Them? Yeah, who's going to die? All that.
Yeah.
So,
and it would have made sense to kill off Axe because that would be, rhyming, poetic rhyming. Him and Paz not making it through the final battle. I mean,
I think that's already happened.
Yeah.
I was Paz.
Well, when he was alone on the ship, I was like, is he going to do a holdo thing here?
Yes.
Or?
Yep.
Well,
I thought the same thing.
Potentially that's what they added at the end. Maybe maybe they added that, after the fact. So, anyway.
Well, the point is, Axe doesn't betray his people. He's a hero. A lot of us were thinking that's what was going to happen, but it didn't. And I'm happy. I don't want him to be a traitor, so I'm glad he's not the spy. I'm glad there were no other spies.
Well, and let's be real. That's probably what's bothering people is it ends up being a happy ending. You can't do that anymore.
We are so we're so programmed like Game of Thrones stuff.
Everybody dies.
Yeah, it's the Rogue One disease.
The Red Wedding.
Star Wars is not Game of Thrones.
I don't think
it's not.
I don't think it's Rogue One.
Yeah, we got to get through our heads.
Red Wedding.
It's a different style of storytelling, and
Dead Start.
Yeah, I mean, like, true. There was I would say Andor is the closest thing we have. Not Andor. I'd say Rogue One is the closest thing we have to Game of Thrones, and Andor to some degree as well, because there are high stakes at times. But we don't need for major characters to die just because. So, and that's not what Star Wars ever was. So, other than Obi-Wan Kenobi, of course, dying because that was pretty major, but still.
But then he didn't die.
Yeah, that's right. He became one of the Force. That's right. They're never gone. Moving through this, it was great to see everything come together. The coordination between R5, Grogu, all of it coming to a head and putting Moff Gideon in a pretty powerful spot, but one where he's being challenged in this episode. And that was a lot of fun to see how things go down. R5 getting Mando and Grogu to the final corridor before Moff Gideon's room. We also get the comical mouse droid. I thought that was great, but let's talk about just getting to that point, to getting to Moff Gideon's lair at that point where you had the shields. That is very reminiscent of episode 1 with the different, waiting to get through things, but Din just going to work one by one, or 2 at a time, I should say, because there's 2 guards on each side of those protective force shields. So that was fun, and I love that there was some tension because R5 was dealing with the mouse droids and trying to figure out what to do from there, and like now would be a good time to get that shield down.
He was having his scene from WALL-E.
Yeah, that's right. It was comical. It's all very Star Warsy, all of it very Star Warsy. It really inspired by George and his original visions for everything. So I think that was a job well done.
Was fun.
Yeah, it was. Jon Favreau with the writing in that sort of sense, that mind frame that George would have done it, and then Rick Famuyiwa doing a great job in executing everything together. It was just the whole thing. How's it 80%? That is just people's expectations not being realized.
I mean, we talked about it. Like, they're following Andor. They're following Andor. So from a critical standpoint, like, okay, so you got the Star Wars fanboys that are never going to be satisfied with anything, but like the actual critics, like, it's because they're like, oh, I just watched Andor. This shit should be serious. You're like, it's Star Wars, man. It's not supposed to be.
Yeah, I do
get
people
fun.
saying it was a safe way to go about things, and I think there's some truth to that to some degree. And we're going to actually hear from a call a little later on that I think will be fun to explore and get that mindset, because there's some really good points made with that. But beyond that, let's talk about how, I like that Mando keeps acquiring better weapons as he's getting ready for his fight against Moff Gideon. I thought that was he has no weapons, so I'll just take yours. I'll kill you and take yours now, and it worked out well. It was very like I guess I would say very John Wickian right there. I thought the John Wick vibe going on with how well he was just like picking up stuff and taking care of business. I liked it. It was good. They discovered that
other than the fact when he gets 2 guns, he's not a god. So I mean, the John Wick rule, give one man
shots for everyone.
Man one gun. He's invincible. Give him 2. He's a god.
They discovered that the containers Moff Gideon passed last episode contained clones of him, which we called that. We knew that's what it was going to be. We will point out that none of them had mustaches. None had mustaches. That will be important later on. We'll talk about that.
So people were bitching. They're like, this is his plan to take over the galaxy? Yes. Force sensitive, clones of himself in Dark Trooper armor, and
not even force sensitive, force wielding.
Yeah. So I mean, I get that they're like, well, that's not enough to take over the whole galaxy. Okay, got it. But you
make enough of them.
He has other places. Yeah. I mean, we know this was not his only place. Yeah. So anyway,
he was working on Navarro at one point.
Him directly doing all
cloning vats on
him
Navarro.
Being a leader. So,
and here's my problem with his logic is, if you make clones of yourself that can wield the Force and you are the weak one, how long do you stick around for?
Yeah,
exactly. It's a rule of 2 would have bit him in the ass.
Yeah. But I mean, it's neither here nor there at this point, because I mean, he's dead. So of course we'll talk about that.
Anyway,
but he kills the clones, as he goes along. Thank goodness he's getting rid of those, because they could be a problem later on. But you've got all this stuff going on, and then also Bo-Katan and the other Mandalorians, they escape Gideon's base and take refuge in a cave with the beautiful plant life there. This is a cool scene. We learned that the Mandos that were left behind, they learned to farm in the caves to survive, something that was thought to be impossible outside the once domed cities and settlements on the planet. This is important. Why? Because they want to resettle Mandalore, and if they can actually grow stuff in these caves and these caverns, well, there you go. They're going to be able to sustain life and support life there, because they can grow their own food, which is kind of an important thing if you want to rebuild a civilization on a planet that was considered dead or poisoned.
Mando form Mandalore.
That's right. There it is.
Mando forming is open.
Mando forming, yes. The survivor captain explains that Mandalore is ready for life once again. So there you go. That sets forward a whole new path. And even if we're done with the Mandalorian chapter of this show in terms of Mandalore itself, that opens the door for lots of future stuff later on. There's a lot of different ways. We have to. And
we'll get to it.
It could be another show later on down the road. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities with that. Establishing a new civilization, once again, on Mandalore. There's a lot that can be done with that. The Mandalorian fleet arrives, led by the armor at this point. Bo-Katan says, let's take back our planet. And then the moment just before the battle, when the armor drops down and is flying next to Bo-Katan, as Bo-Katan ignites the Dark Saber to lead the charge, that's a cool moment.
Yeah.
The buildup is appreciated. It was so well done, and the music was epic. It was great. So, yeah, I was definitely a fan. And then you get that huge battle with all the jetpacks in action. That was phenomenal.
That was awesome.
So well done.
The armor with the hammer. So I don't know if you guys noticed in the concept art at the end, the armor was actually wielding like a belt fed blaster, like what what Paz had. So I thought it was a good choice. She's got the hammer and the tongs, and she's wasting people. Yeah.
Yep.
That was awesome.
I could do without it.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
I thought it was more fun. It's a neat cinematic choice, but it's not a tactically good choice.
Well, here's the thing. I love it because the armor just lays waste with just her tools. That's all she needs. Her tools are not just tools; they're also weapons. And I love that she weaponizes the things that she uses every day. So I like that aspect of it. I thought it was a cool choice. So that battle is truly epic. From the waves, the swaths of jetpack wearing people just flying against each other and through each other like two swarms of insects was really fun to watch. I thought it was so good.
Classic Star. I mean, it's like when the TIE fighters merge
Yep.
with the Rebel fighters at the Battle of Endor. Yeah.
Yeah,
They're just
it was great.
classic Star Wars.
Yeah. Then we cut from that action down to Mando and Grogu on the hunt for Gideon, who was expecting them, and we knew this was coming because it was already keyed into all of us that he was watching them, as they were making their way toward him.
Yeah.
He's pissed, of course, because Mando killed all his clones, and he exposes that he had given them the ability to wield the Force. He clearly had designs on reshaping the Empire in his own image. And I think that was important because Gideon, if that is his plan and he's successful at it, we don't get the sequel trilogy the way it was. It's a different thing. Had he been successful in his plan, he would have been ruling, and he would have gone way far away from any thought of bringing the Emperor back.
Well,
There's
and
no
it
way he
gives
would have
you an
done that.
explanation of why it took them a while to, have Project Necromancer / the Emperor's contingency succeed. So I think, that's kind of cool too.
Yeah. And the battle between the two begins, and we see the strength of Gideon's powered Dark Trooper suit before he calls on the Praetorian Guard. He calls them in. But I thought that was really neat to show that it wasn't just armor. He had taken the power of the Dark Troopers that we saw in Season 2 and used that powered suit to be able to really wreak havoc. And so there was that, because the Force was like, is he Force wielding as well? Like, what's going on here? But you kind of hear the whirring of the power of the suit and all that.
And I mean, that goes a long way towards explaining one of the things that had irritated me was having him be as strong in hand-to-hand combat as he was.
Right.
I mean, especially against somebody like Din, who lived their life fighting in armor.
Yeah.
Like, that's a skill that you build up over time. It's not something you just pick up along the way,
And then, of course, gives way pretty quickly. He only goes toe-to-toe with them for a short bit before he's like, I'm not going to deal with this. Praetorian Guards, come on in. We're ready for you. So they come in. They quickly subdue Mando. You're like, okay, what's going to happen here? But that's when we get the dark moment with Grogu stepping in to distract them and saying, no. And Gideon continues to blast in while shooting a cable around his neck. That cable around the neck thing. Mandalorians need neck armor, right? Because we saw both sides using that technique a lot.
Helicopters have like a no shit like blade usually in front of the blades, like pointed forward to, like, if they hit a wire, to cut the wire before it gets the blade, the rotors. That's what you need, like a little thing sticking out of your chest, like.
That's what they need. It's crazy how much that happens. I mean, it's cool.
Yeah.
It looks cool every time.
It does.
But it's so effective. But man, we saw that a lot.
Come up with a
You
counter.
just have like a mini lightsaber blade that goes right here, like vertical, right under your chin, so that anything comes around it,
Just split it right there. We get, again, a lot more going on. We're worried about Grogu at this point because he just kind of runs away. He's not really using the Force. I'm like, why don't you just like blast him with a Force push or something like that?
I didn't understand that.
I didn't either, but it shows maybe an important thing about restraint. I know that Jon Favreau's talked before about, one of the things about Jedi is they try to restrain themselves. They don't use more force than is necessary. But to me, I'm like, this is a survival moment. You do what you got to do. I mean, you distract them, pull the Praetorian Guards away, but now it's 3 against 1 again, as opposed to 2 against 3. And you got the Force, it's like 5 against 3.
But other than jumping, we haven't seen him do anything in a while, and it is essentially canon now that if you don't use your abilities for a while, we saw it in Obi-Wan Kenobi where he wasn't too good at using the Force because he was rusty. So I mean, maybe that's it. So
So, but we again, get a really fun battle. We're splitting between Mando and Gideon, and also Grogu, whose IG-12 vehicle is disabled by the Praetorian Guards, and he's jumping around from the light fixtures and doing his little cute Grogu flips all over the place.
Doing his Yoda versus Dooku thing.
Yep. But eventually, we knew it was coming. He falls, but only after Bo-Katan flew in to fight Gideon and allowed Din to go save Grogu. Go save your kid. So he comes in, and the two of them work together to put down the guards. I do have to admit something, though, that they looked clumsier in this fight than they did last week when we saw them take down Paz Vizsla. Like, they were very, very effective in taking him down with precision, whereas in this fight they're missing a lot. Granted, there's some force pushing and pulling going on with Grogu, but it looked clumsier than last week. And I thought, I really praised last week's episode, or the penultimate episode 7 of this season, chapter 23, because they were so effective in taking Paz down that I thought it gave weight to the scene in The Last Jedi when both Rey and Kylo take on the Praetorian Guards together, and it's a big battle, but they take him down. I thought that the way they took down Paz in chapter 23 really demonstrated how deadly lethal they were. However, in this episode, they seemed clumsier because we needed our hero to win. I don't know. I don't know if you guys picked up on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes more sense to have them be the way they were in the last episode than the one before. I just, as I've told you guys a million times in regards to Marvel, I think sometimes you can make your villains too powerful.
Yeah.
And you get somebody like Thanos, for example, who wouldn't be beatable if he had all the powers that they give him. So you can go too far.
Yeah, you make
the other end
villain too powerful, and it kind of makes you think, well, how could they actually defeat this guy then? Exactly. I get your thinking.
And it doesn't make sense for the Praetorians to be like
they're not force wielders,
powerful. Yeah. They're just regular people who do a lot of training. They're like Batman. Whereas, the Jedi are Superman. Yeah. And we all know how that fight should go.
Superman's going to win. Yeah, there's no question. Yeah. All right, next we see the heavily damaged light cruiser coming in hot, and we think Axe is going down with the ship after warning Bo and Casca to get everyone out because he's coming in and crashing the ship. Meanwhile, Bo is losing her fight to Gideon, and he's crushing it, man. And he even, speaking of crushing, crushes the hilt of the Dark Saber. It's a sad moment, but
sad. Yeah. And maybe that was, I mean, in terms of sadness, that might be one of the things that, when they're saying you'll be sad about it, that could be one of those things.
I guess that has to be the thing. I mean, the Dark Saber, it is a very, beloved, iconic piece of Star Wars now, going back to
some people, right?
Yeah, true. Going back to the Clone Wars, that has been a piece of Star Wars.
I thought they made Gideon too strong too when it comes to him being able to just wipe the floor with Bo-Katan. I just don't see that.
Yeah.
That's just me.
I mean, he was definitely winning. There's no question he was winning in that. But we don't know what his fight skills really were prior to this. He's had a lot of training over the years. He's pretty. But you give him a powered suit and
Imperial officers are supposed to take their, combat boxing or whatever they ended up calling it in the EU, and I get that, but Bo-Katan lived her life as a warrior and was all about honor fights and constantly fighting over every stupid little thing.
Yeah, and she holds her own against other people too. Like she took down Axe and all that. So yeah,
and I don't know. That was a thing that irritated me several times in the last couple episodes.
So sad moment with the crushing of the saber, and just when it looks like Gideon's about to prevail, telling us that Mandalorians are weak. Bo-Katan spies who else but Din walking up behind Gideon and informs Gideon that Mandalorians are actually stronger together. And that's when things go from bad to worse for Moff Gideon. And also after that, the ship crashes into the base, and Bo, Din, and Grogu, they battle Gideon until the flames overtake them all. And we get that swooning music. The soundtrack comes up as Grogu uses the Force to shield the three heroes from the inferno all around them in total triumph. Excellent imagery, very John Williams vibe of the music. All of it was excellent.
Yeah, it was
echoing of when Grogu did it before.
Fun. Yep. It was awesome. It was just a very Star Wars moment there, and also reminded me of some past moments in Star Wars with the shielding from fire, which we do have a call that talks about that as well. So I'll let that person talk about that. But we kind of close out the episode as we get toward the end of everything. We're tying all the loose threads up here. We see Paz, his son Ragnar, taking the creed and bathing in the living waters. Din asks Grogu to receive the same rite and wants to take him on as as his apprentice, and the armorer says that he's too young. He can't even talk. He can't talk. He can't take the creed. We then get some talk about his parents. What if they give permission? Well, we don't know where they are or who they are. Yeah. We are curious. Was it Yoda and Yaddle? We don't know.
And we never will.
And probably never will. Like that would be something if they did expose who his parents are. But I'm like
a slap in the face to George to do that.
I think you just got to let it linger out there and always wonder.
Yeah, I think it's better. Yeah, man. Yeah, some things are better left a mystery. But no, the Grogu with the Mythosaur, I thought that was fun. The IG-12, I don't know. It was fun.
It was fun. Yeah. So we talk about talk about his parents, and then Din is like, well, you know what? No. Screw that. I'm just going to adopt him. Grogu's mine now. He's mine. He's going to be my son. And he is then renamed Din Grogu. It's a strange naming convention considering the clan names.
Yeah.
For Clan Vizsla.
Vizsla. Yeah.
Yeah. Clan Ren, all that stuff. The last name is the family
last name. Yeah.
Why? I don't get this. I need
There's going to need to be an explanation.
Gotta be. Like, how does that work out? Like, is it Din Grogu until he's a full member of the clan? And
Maybe.
Then he's Grogu. What is the
Grogu
clan?
Jaren.
Yeah. Is there a Jaren clan? I don't know. I don't know how any of that works. Is that something that's only for children of the Watch, the ones that are adopted? Is that what it is? I mean, like, I kind of need that explained to me. I don't have to, but kind of do.
Why is Ragnar not Ragnar Vizsla?
Yeah.
Because he's adopted.
Yeah, that's right. He was adopted. He was a foundling as well. So I'd like to know about that. But that's something that kind of like just sticks in my craw. I don't know what's going on. I would like to have that explained. And we're not going to get an explanation, I'm sure, for a very, very long time, if we get one ever.
Well, there's a chance on Gallery they let us know some of these things. Gallery has been great for doing some of that. So we'll see.
It has. Yeah, it has. All right, so you've got the naming convention. The armor then insists that the two must leave Mandalore for more adventures as part of the apprenticeship. So what does this set up? Well, there's a lot of thoughts on what it sets up, but it is kind of weird just how this is season 3. We know there's a season 4. It feels like the show comes to an end, right? It really feels like
Rangers of the New Republic to me.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
And then we also go deep into the depths of the living waters to see the mythosaur stirring once again. When is that going to be a thing?
They clearly make it that Grogu is communicating through the Force with the mythosaur.
Right. Yep.
Like that's clearly what's going on. So I think that's going to be one, like, they're coming back to Mandalore, either in the season 4 or the movie. One of
Grogu should have told them to come up and eat the armor. That would have been funny. One swallow. Just,
well, then there would have been that big death, right, Jake? That would have been that big death.
It would have been much more fulfilling.
I thought that was interesting, though, that they have to leave the planet for the apprenticeship. It's strange, but again, we don't know all the inner workings of how that stuff works.
Kid smells. Get him out of here for a while.
Get him out of here. He keeps eating all the frogs.
Yes.
He's gotta go. His breath stinks.
Leave the amphibians alone.
Bo-Katan takes a torch from the armor in another scene moments later, obviously, and lights the Great Forge of Mandalore to great fanfare as Axe leads the chant for Mandalore.
Yes.
Again, it all feels very much like an ending. Very much like an ending. We then cut to that sweet N1 starfighter heading out to the Delphi Ranger base. Carson Teva and Mando talking about the great work of taking down Gideon, and we see an IG unit's head on the top of the bar. We also get Din's proposition to work for the New Republic to hunt down the Imperial remnants on a case-by-case basis. And on the down low,
Rangers.
Yeah, I know. It does set up Rangers of the New Republic really quite nicely if that's what they want to do with it. I like it. It works for me. Next, we're on Navarro with Grief Karga giving Din a new cabin to live in between their new adventures, of course, on the outskirts of town, so they're not bothered by the folks too much. And we also see IG-11 revealed to us as the new Marshal of Navarro, fully replacing Marshal Cara Dune.
Yep.
So there's that
droid.
Yep.
Who will only say what Disney tells them to say.
Gosh, Jake. We see
it's
Din.
Taika Waititi, so that's actually completely not true.
That's true, because Taika says what Taika wants.
He's one of the people that can actually say
he's a reverend.
If he wants to. If he wants to.
Yeah.
He's an irreverent guy. We see
you
Din
can say whatever you want. It just has to be on, on a very thin line that you want to follow around.
All right, Jake, there's a lot of different thoughts on things that were said, Jake, and those that disagree with things that were said.
They should all
let's not go down that route.
Yeah, we're not going to go down that path. We're going to focus on unity here, Jake.
Hey, shut up and act. I can agree with that. So can you, damn it.
All right. Din and Din Grogu. I just hate calling him Din Grogu. I don't like it. Din and Din Grogu relaxing at their new home, and we get the cool little circle fade out as things are left nice and cute as he's levitating a frog, and that's the end of the episode. I watched to the very end, assuming we were getting a post-credit scene, something, anything, nothing. I could not believe there's no post-credit scene.
Yeah, we said it earlier. That's the one thing where I'm like, come on, John and Dave. Like, just hook us up, bro. Just hook us up.
Give us something. There's
Star Wars fans. There's an expectation laid for it.
Yeah.
Like, just do it. Anyway,
come on.
Just do it.
I was so shocked. I was genuinely shocked. Nothing. And you know what else I'm gonna say? I hated seeing all the different clickbait websites out there that were saying like the post-credit scene explained, as if there was one, getting people to click on like, oh, I didn't see one. What was there? Did I miss it?
Yeah.
That pisses me off so much because I did not click on any of those because I knew it was a scheme. I knew it was a ploy, so I did not give them my clicks. So I just want to point that out that I hate those folks so much.
You get too worked up about
I hate
that.
you so very, very much.
I hate you guys so much.
Dan, Eric, cut my name.
So there's a lot to unpack with this now, obviously. I do want to go to a call from a friend of the show, Dave Slater, on the line, and let me go and just get his thoughts. And he's going to cover a lot of topics here, but let's go to Dave and get his thoughts on this finale episode.
Am I wrong, or was this the safe/Disney ending to the series?
Not wrong.
Again, we had tons of rumors coming into this final episode of, would we see Thrawn? Would Din Djarin maybe die? Would Bo-Katan die? Would the Armorer die? We have more back and forth of who was a potential spy, and didn't really get a lot of that for the entire episode. It stayed very contained to this little pocket of the Mando universe. Didn't even get to see Carson Teva in the X-Wings or Zeb as far as a fight, and that was kind of one of a little bit of a disappointment for me. Not really a big space battle in Star Wars. We did have Axwell doing the dive bomb. That was cool, like that. Great explosions. Talk more about that in just a second. One of the things I did like as far as back and forth on the planet side of things, even though we didn't get a lot of space battling, the battle on the planet, great use of tactics. And what I mean by that is you got everybody wearing Beskar, so the best way to kill somebody off is you got to look for the weak points. So we got to see more flamethrowers. We got to see the little grapple hooks getting used on both sides. We saw people using the knives to try and get at each other. And so it had a lot different feel from a lot of other Star Wars fights, especially ground level fights. Also really, really like to see Grogu working with Daddy Din to take down the Praetorian Guard, using him just to make all these little moves here and there, using the Force and giving him the edge. So it was very cool there.
Yeah, Dave brought up a lot of really good points there. Some things we've already kind of talked about here, but one thing being that no one major died and there were no other spies. Again, I think that kind of ruined things for me to fully enjoy it because I was letting that dictate my expectations for the show based upon all the theories that we saw out there. But he's right. And I kind of blame the folks involved with making the show for leading us astray to think that something more was coming. That post from about like this one's gonna hurt and all that, and then the guys talking about, both John and Dave, in all the Celebration interviews, talking about how major things are going to happen and all these things. Not like I'm saying they're at fault for trying to lead us astray, but we tend to interpret everything they've got going on in the direction that we see things going. So it boils down to this whole thing where you can't pay attention to all that stuff. You got to just get in the moment and put your expectations aside and just enjoy the show.
Let go of your feelings.
Yes.
That's right. Very Jedi-like Zen type way of enjoying Star Wars. Just let your feelings go. You'll be fine. So that's kind of where it all comes down to. But Dave made some really great points. He also talked about a bit of disappointment that there was no involvement from Carson Teva and Zeb from the Rangers of the New Republic coming in to the rescue.
It would have been kind of cool to see.
It would have.
I mean, I like what they did, but I would have really liked to have seen the Republic show up and like try and take out some TIE interceptors. But I mean, the way they did it was good and fun, and it made sense for the plot. So I want to see more space battle. So,
yeah, and there definitely was this thing where it's the Mandalorians getting it done for their world. It's their fight. Right. No one else needs to get involved. So, I mean, that was a good choice, too.
Well, and dude, I mean, I think it's like we talked. This is the show where they're going to play it safe. This is the flagship of the Disney Plus streaming service.
True.
Like, they're not going to take massive, risky moves on this show. That's what Andor's for. That's what some of the other, IPs for. But like this Kenobi, like, no, it's going to turn out about the way you think, because that's what needs to happen, because that's the way. It's a Saturday morning Flash Gordon serial. That's the way
they
it
are
works.
the most bankable stars of the Disney empire.
This is
at this
the
point.
way.
Yeah, so it's Marvel level where you're not going to have certain people go away unless,
if that's going to happen, it's going to happen in the movie.
Yep, I agree. Yep, I think you're absolutely right. Yes, we could see some demises.
And to be clear, I'm not predicting that. But I do think someone will die in the movie. I just don't think it'll be the Mandalorian or Grogu. But
no.
But there you go.
It'll be IG-11 again.
Yeah, we're just gonna keep killing that droid off constantly.
No.
But Dave,
no.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out that Dave was a fan of the fighting, as we were too. We talked about that earlier. Even if we didn't get as much of the space battle that you would like to see, with more fighters involved and that sort of stuff, I agree. It's a very Star Wars thing to want and to expect. But in the end, I really enjoyed what they did with the jetpack battle. That kind of made up for the lack of the space battle. So
100%.
I'm fine with that.
It's
something
kind of a
I can
Star Wars
definitely-
thing to be disappointed as a fan.
It is.
It's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah. And also, he talked about how fun it was to see Din and Grogu fighting together as a team. And this is something I was enjoying.
Cool.
We've been looking forward to that pretty much all season, right? I mean, there have been a few moments here along the way, but to see them fight as a team is really awesome.
I'm excited to see Grogu growed up and fighting.
And talking
on
at
his
some
own
point.
feet. Yeah, exactly.
I will say the little coups were cute. What's that?
When are they going to get to voice him?
Boy, that's a good question. Yeah, I'm sure.
Kid.
Yeah, and are they going to have him talk the way Yoda did, or normal, since he's grown
Yaddle
up around people that talk normal?
That way. Yeah,
Yaddle didn't talk that way. Like, why does Yoda talk that way? I think he did it to entertain himself. When you get that old, you find new ways to entertain yourself, and I think he just loves messing with people, and that's why he talks.
I think they mentioned that in some of the canon books. Actually, that he talked that way just to be irritating, basically.
Oh, really?
If
I
remember
correctly.
Somewhere, I don't remember
where was that?
One of the newer books ones, or
I don't know.
I don't even remember. Yeah, it may have been one I haven't read. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll have to think about it.
It's an interesting question to ponder, I guess. But
there's always questions to ponder.
Yeah. Speaking of pondering, Dave does more of that here on the ending, specifically about the demise of Moff Gideon and the destruction of the Dark Saber. Let's hear his thoughts on that.
I actually like the idea of destroying the Dark Saber for now. I like the Dark Saber, while it is one of the coolest weapons you can have in Star Wars, had become a bit of a MacGuffin and a lot of rules, and it was becoming kind of complicated. So I think this will simplify stuff going forward with the idea of Bo-Katan, leader of the Mandalorians. You don't have to worry so much about, does she have the sword or not, and who has it, all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of a nice touch there. And I will also say this, after the actual dive bomb, Giancarlo Esposito apparently knows how to die in an explosion, for those of you that are Breaking Bad fans.
Indeed.
I also got very strong Kanan Jarrus vibes from Star Wars Rebels, as far as Grogu being able to keep the flames away from his family members. That was a great little scene right there. And then afterwards, of course, we wrap everything up. Bo becomes the leader of the Mandalorians. Grogu gets his adoption. Sort of puts a bow on a lot of that. And I think the after part of seeing Carson Teva and sort of getting back more to I think what's going to be the Western vibe that originally started with the series, with him being more of a hired gun, and back to the very start of the series with I can bring you in warm or I can bring you in cold, that idea going forward.
I think that's exactly right. By tying up all these different story threads, you open the door to what the series was in the beginning, and just kind of that Western vibe and being the bounty hunter. I actually think it was a really great way to work it out. There's people who are complaining about it, but I think it's a very genius way to open the door to what the show was.
They had to get rid of the Dark Saber if they want the clans to stick together, because it was going to become
so many challenges there for it. So and that's what I think. Like, they move off of like this very mystical like history of Mandalore thing, which I think was awesome, but like some casual fans probably weren't as much
people. Up on that.
And they move it back to what it started, and they can do that because now they have a movie. Yep. And now they have Ahsoka and a bunch of other shows to pick up some of those threads. So now it doesn't have to do as much explaining of like how Thrawn comes back and like the remnants and all that. Yeah. Like there'll still be some of that when they're hunting down Imperial remnants, but it's not it doesn't have to do that. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Chris, I know you've got a flight to catch, so we're gonna have to bid adieu to you here in the next couple of moments. So before you wrap up and say your goodbye, before we wrap up this episode, and we're gonna talk more in a moment. But Chris, if you were to encapsulate this third season, how successful it was, do you have any final thoughts on this before Jake and I take this one home?
Yeah, I mean, you're never gonna equal Luke Skywalker showing up as peak Luke and like wasting a bunch of dark troopers. So I mean, like man, just how do you follow Andor? So it was exactly what I thought it would be. It did a lot of cool things.
Yeah.
I wanted a few more things to come out of it, but I thought like it was super fun, and I really enjoyed the way they threaded everything together. We talked about the action was awesome. Like, man, when Bo like lands on the platform, skids off the edge, and then jetpacks backwards and fires her knee missiles in her blaster to take it. I mean, dude, just stuff like that where you're like, this is Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just Star Wars, and the cutting back and forth between the different battles, the view of the fighters and stuff. Like it was just really peak Star Wars. And while plot wise, there's a few more things I wanted. Like, man, it was awesome, and I'm just so thankful that we get such talented folks to make such great Star Wars content for us to enjoy, because, you just remembering back to, man, after the movies ended and, like there was nothing except the cartoons, and then the cartoons ended and there was nothing till, for years. So I just,
so many years.
We're so lucky to have this. And, I just hope
it's a gift.
I hope the Ahsoka show and the Acolyte and all the things that we're going to see, I think they're starting to build on it. And I hope that, the movie especially is awesome. So I thought it was great. 9 out of 10 for me. And I really enjoyed it. And I can't wait to see season 4. I'm hopeful maybe we'll get some more of the, the cool space battles and stuff like that in season 4. Carson Teva and his guys, stuff like that.
Fun.
So yeah,
it'd be a lot of fun for sure.
All right. Well, sorry I got to bail, but thanks to you guys for letting me sit in, and I'll see you later.
We'll talk to you soon, Chris. Happy travels, my friends. All right. Do want to get to some other final thoughts on season 3. So for that, we'll go back to our friend Dave Slater and hear what he had to say about that.
It was all right. It was a decent season, probably the weakest of the 3. Again, we were led to believe there was a lot more back and forth that was going to be coming on, and we had a lot more kumbaya. We didn't have quite the butting of heads in the show, and it felt at times as the series was getting a little bit of a drift from where it wanted to go and what exactly it wanted to do, but still had a lot of fun for it. And again, we've got the Ahsoka series coming up in August. We've got the return of Thrawn. That is going to be fantastic, and always looking forward to the next project from Dave Filoni and his crew.
Dave Slater, thank you so much for taking the time to share your thoughts with us. Really appreciate you for that. And talking about a lot of stuff there. I really enjoyed the third season. I liked the story about Mandalore. I was a little surprised at times by the choice to deviate from Din Djarin be the focal point of the show. But Bo-Katan is such a beloved character from the Clone Wars. Then also we saw her emerge once again in Rebels. And that storyline about the importance of Mandalore, I think if you're going to have a story about Mandalore and the Mandalorian people, you kind of had to, because Din is a child of the Watch. I mean, he was a foundling. So he will not be the focal point of this. Though many of us were rooting for him to become the next leader of Mandalore, this really makes a lot more sense.
I don't think he'd ever been to Mandalore before.
He had
this season.
Yeah. He hadn't. So that was really neat. So I understand some of the disappointment that some fans like Dave kind of felt with things for this season, but overall I really enjoyed it. And like Chris was saying, this, putting the drought of Star Wars content aside to have these stories. And I know that Dave would say the same thing, that he's so glad to have these. He's a big Star Wars fan. So this is really fun for him to have it as well. But I think, those folks that are kind of chirping about the disappointments, maybe the third season wasn't the strongest of all 3. I think that season 2 is really hard to top because you got so much that happened. Like the first season I thought was good, but it was setting the story for the bigger story ahead.
Yeah.
Season 2 really amped up the tension because it was the taking care of Grogu and then uniting with Luke Skywalker in the end. Like, I don't think you can really cap that. That is kind of a tantamount moment right there. Like that it's an ultimate moment.
Yeah.
And it's hard. And to have that kind of a finale, like second season versus the finale we got for the third season, I think you have to kind of just lower your expectations a little bit, because there's certain moments along the way that will never be topped. And I feel like the Luke Skywalker moment, for all of us whose childhood was so much better because of Luke Skywalker, you're not going to be able to top that. You just can't. But what you can do is enjoy it for what it is.
Yep. Yeah,
So,
it would be hard to go beyond the whole Luke Skywalker thing for any people of our generation. So.
Yeah. But I really enjoyed the third season. I think overall,
Yep.
I mean, I rank it really high. I have not been disappointed by a single season. Are there a couple episodes here and there that was like, no, I don't know, kind of, I mean,
Sure.
yeah. But along the way, the bigger story is served throughout. So I'm good with that. It all ties together, and I like that. Matt Tagami, our fellow Force Geek, he's got a take on the finale. Not going to go into everything he said, but he did mention that he's still processing everything to this point, and that he enjoyed much of it, but was also thrown off the track a bit with no big deaths, as seems to be a theme here, to someone else not being a spy that we thought would be. And he also said that Giancarlo Esposito is awesome. He's a true talent. Let's get his final thoughts on everything from the loss of the Dark Saber to overall thoughts on the finale. Matt Tagami, my friends.
I hope this isn't really the end of the Dark Saber. I was hoping to see that around more too. And definitely not a fan of Grogu's new name, but I guess we'll have to get used to that.
No kidding.
When this episode finished, I think the feeling I got was that it was a soft reboot, where there really isn't any loose ends left to tie up. And now we know who the new Ranger of the New Republic might be, or is going to be, if they ever want to go in that direction. So while Mando's series may end, as we know, and Mando will still live on for whenever they want to draw upon his character. It will also be interesting to see what they will do in the last season, before a potential move to a Mando versus theatrical direction. So all in all, I thought it was a really good season. Definitely want to watch it again, and give it a B+ is my kind of final score.
So Matt, a little tough on it too. I mean, not terrible. I mean, B+ is good, but it's
I
not
was at
tops.
like an 8.5 out of 10, maybe.
Yeah. So
Which is pretty close to where he's at.
yeah. Yep. I give it a 9 out of 10. I liked it. I thought it was a great
For
episode.
the whole season or the last episode?
The whole season. Yeah, I give it a 9 because I love Mandalore so much. I give it a 9 out of 10. I just really love the story of Mandalore. I think this could have been a great thing kind of as its own show, to be honest with you, about the retaking of Mandalore.
Retaking Mandalore?
Yeah. As it fits in with the bigger story overall, I don't know. But I mean, I really enjoyed this season a lot. I think it was really well done. I thought the directing was really good all the way through.
Oh, for sure.
Some of the stories at certain points along the way, like when we did that episode that was very much Law and Order. I think it was the 6th chapter of the season. I was a little like, I don't know if I really love this one so much, but I did enjoy it overall.
And I already explained why I thought it was perfectly acceptable and kind of necessary in a lot of ways.
Yep.
In terms of, fleshing out Bo and Din's, working style, how they're going to get along together. So.
But I think what Matt said was a lot. I will say that a lot of people, and Matt kind of really drove this home, that a lot of people kind of tend to think that the next season, the 4th season, just because we know there is a 4th season, will be the last season of Mandalorian. We don't actually know that. Jon Favreau has said a few things. It makes sense, and it's an easy leap to make, but we can't say for sure that we know it's the last season. It would make sense because of the theatrical story being told after the 4th season at some point along the way. But Jon Favreau has said that he could see this going on, for a long time. And even recently, Pedro Pascal has said, with his schedule, he's a busy guy, but he said he'll keep playing the voice as long as there's a story to be told.
Sure.
So he's not planning to go anywhere.
There's a check to be sent.
That's right. And it is pretty easy if you're just doing the voiceover versus the actual in-suit work. I mean, it's pretty.
You could do that anywhere.
Pretty stellar gig, really. So, yeah. So, and he doesn't have to take his mask off, his helmet, supposedly.
Yeah.
That is something that is a question for me. How do these two groups survive together with such fundamental differences?
Yeah, they're going to have to get over the whole keeping your helmet on thing all the time.
Yeah. Yep.
Because not only is it irritating for the audiences, but it's just stupid.
Yeah. I will say that going back to a thought that we had earlier about the change from Jon Favreau being the voice of Kaz Vizsla versus Tate Fletcher, I thought that was a pretty clear signal that we would see Tate Fletcher's face at some point along the way, and we never got to see Paz's face.
So it makes you wonder,
he died
why.
faceless. Yeah.
Why did they do that?
I'm guessing that maybe it was a thing where Tate had been playing that role, that why not let him take it on full? I could see John being that way. Like, this doesn't have to be me. Like, let's honor his contributions. Yeah. Let's honor his contributions. Let him take over. I think
that's probably the only thing that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Of alternative explanations for why. I think that makes sense. And maybe that'll be one of those things, like Chris said, that Gallery will cover for us.
I bet they have to talk about that. I mean, that would make a lot of sense. I'm really looking forward to the Gallery episode for this season.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun that we can learn about everything that was going on. Things we loved. The space battle scenes were great, though we would have liked to have seen more, obviously, but they showcase our heroes facing just these crazy odds stacked against them. The action happening above and below. That's classic Star Wars. It's a big old happy ending. But is it? I think that Dave did a really great job of bringing all that stuff home about how this kind of brings things back to the way they were. And I think Tagami mentioned that as well, that it's like, hey, it opens the door to, what could be, whether it's Rangers of the New Republic or, as Dave said, kind of resetting. Both said this reset or a soft reboot, as Tagami said it. That is, I think, a pretty accurate way. And I think it makes a lot of sense for looking at the story ahead, because no longer are you caught up in these storylines of trying to find a Jedi to unite Grogu with for his training, because that's already happened. You're no longer worried about the Mandalorian people because they seem to be taken care of. Now you can focus solely on Din and Grogu. So it seems pretty perfect way to set things forward.
Yeah. I mean, you'd be able to focus on them in a way that wouldn't have been doable.
Yeah.
As part of the show.
Those storylines are wrapped up. You don't have to worry about them anymore. So is Moff Gideon actually dead? That's the question that a lot of people are asking, because many questions being asked by theorizers online. Dan Wolf, one of them, talking about the specific theory. We'll call it the mustache theory, based on Moff Gideon's mustache, his appearance in this season. He has no mustache this season. He's had one before in the past, but he doesn't have one this season.
Well, where's he going to hide his mustache cash stash?
That's right. The clones didn't have mustaches, and so a lot of people are saying that they think that the Moff Gideon that was defeated or barbecued is actually one of Gideon's clones. It's possible. I mean, Maybe. It is possible. But here's my thing, and Dan easily explains this away, and I'll get to his point in a moment. But I was like, if this is one of his clones, and he has the ability to wield the Force, why is he not wielding the Force then?
Yeah.
Why is that not happening? But Dan says maybe it was one of the earlier clone versions of himself that didn't have the ability, maybe a failed version of the Force wielding deal, and he sent him in to, off him, and if he got killed in the process, so be it. It's just his clone.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously there's a pretty large leap between being able to access the Force to being able to effectively use the Force. So
Yep. Yeah, I don't know. But I will say that I am poo-pooing that. I think that was actually Moff Gideon that died. But we did not see him die. We saw the flames, but we never saw him die. So could he have escaped? Possibly.
Sure.
Possibly. I kind of like the idea that his story is wrapped up as well, though, because I like the idea that Thrawn is now the big overarching bad guy figure, and let's focus on him now. He's a much more formidable opponent now, and in the grand scheme of things, more important overall. So I like that. Yep.
I would like to see them move on.
We don't know if Moff Gideon had any other cloning facilities that are in use. We just don't know. We know the one in Navarro was damaged and blown up. We don't know if there are any other ones. I mean, maybe. I don't know. We'll see if we're truly through with Moff Gideon. I hope, that for the sake of the story that we are, but for the sake of just how talented Giancarlo Esposito is and how much he brings to the table, I kind of hope not. I just like him. So,
Well, maybe they're continuing to clone him on Wayland. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, there are those facilities there. I mean, that's, they're clearly working on things there. So it could be.
Yep.
Fans of the show will be excited to see what happens next and where the story goes. Ahsoka, as has been noted many times, is up next for stories from the Mandoverse. I will say that I think that people getting to see that teaser trailer for Ahsoka probably took away from the experience of watching this finale. And I say that because we know Thrawn's coming. We know he's coming. So why didn't we get any tease of Thrawn in this episode? I think that kind of spoke to us. And I will say that Mark Thompson, who's a guy who also listens to the podcast and that we know well, is a friend of the show, he brought that up in a text message with me that I was talking to him about. And it was interesting because he said that he thought that things were kind of ruined because of that expectation of having seen the trailer for Ahsoka, that we would see something more, and that if you compare this finale with the finale of the second season, then you know that Thrawn's coming. We don't see any mention of Thrawn. It kind of ruined his expectations for what he was going to see, and Matt Hoagland felt the same way about that.
I mean, I understand, but I just wouldn't get hung up on it.
Yeah. Yep. Well, all right. Lastly, the Hot Mic podcast is reporting that multiple sources are saying that John Boyega is in talks to return to join Daisy Ridley in the new movie announced at Celebration, which would be directed by Sharmeen Obaid Chinoy. And the host, John Rocca, said this, quote, "I'll tell you this. I'll break this myself. According to some sources I know, different sources have reached out to me because of this show, and they have said to me that according to them, and what they're hearing is that John Boyega will be coming back for this movie." I mean, I hope so. I don't know though. I mean, it's all rumors at this point, so take it with a grain of salt. But John Boyega coming back, I would love to see that. How about you, Jake?
I'm fine with it. I mean, I think he did a great job with the role he was given.
Yep.
So.
All right, guys. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think John's coming back? Will John Boyega back? Will we get a better story for Finn in the future? Tell us about it. We'd love to hear from you. Again, you can hit us up.
How we could get a worse one.
Let's have him back. Tell us what you think. Hit us up on social media at the Force Geeks. Check your pick whatever platform you're using. Just go ahead and tell us there at the Force Geeks. Do you want to see John Boyega back? Because we definitely do. We'll be back in a couple weeks here on the Force Geeks, a Star Wars podcast, to break down the new season of Star Wars Visions. That is the next project that's coming away. It's for May the 4th. So remember, May the 4th be with you. That is the big event that Lucasfilm is offering. Star Wars Visions Season 2. We'll have all the latest Star Wars news when we check back in a couple weeks. In the coming weeks, we'll also be breaking down everything we know about each of the new shows previewed at Star Wars Celebration, with some deep dives on each of those. You can find the Force Geeks of Star Wars podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. Your Alexa device is also another way you can listen to us, and just about any place you get your podcast from, you can find us there. And just a reminder here that we appreciate your kind reviews of the show. We do appreciate those. Again, find us on social media. You can also send us an email. That is theforcegeeks@gmail.com. Again, theforcegeeks@gmail.com. We'll see you there, and we're happy to take your emails. In the meantime, make sure you share, like, and follow. We appreciate your reviews. We're posting episodes on YouTube as well. And remember, if you don't follow the Force Geeks, you're looking for your Star Wars in all around places. Talk to you soon, and may the Force be with you always.